college game. He stood inside a Puma flagship store in New York City and told the world he planned to be worth $1 billion by the time he turned 25. That was not delusion. That was a realistic sounding goal for someone in his position. And then one night, one decision, one moment at a house in the hills east of San Diego started a chain reaction that ended with Mikey Williams describing his bank account in the negative and wondering how everything he had built disappeared so fast. This documentary breaks down exactly how it happened, where the money went, what the legal system did to his finances, and whether the comeback he is currently attempting at Sacramento State is enough to rewrite the ending of one of basketball's most stunning cautionary tales. The numbers are real, the timeline is verified, and by the end of this, you will understand exactly how one of the most financially positioned young athletes in America ended up with nothing. This is the full story of Mikey Williams. Let's break it all down. The numbers don't lie, and here's what we know. In October 2021, at 17 years old, Mikey Williams became the first American high school basketball player to sign a multi-year endorsement deal with Puma, one of the largest sportswear companies on the planet. Reports pegged that deal at over $3 million. On top of that, he had a separate brand partnership with Lace Clips worth up to $200,000 per year. He had signed with Excel Sports Management, one of the most respected agencies in the business, to pursue additional NIL opportunities. When that signing was announced, Excel Vice President Matt Davis described Williams' market value as off the charts, saying his digital and social following spoke for themselves and that his relevance among peers in the basketball community was unlike anyone else at his age. He co-owned a $1,200,000 property in the hills east of San Diego, 5 acres, infinity pool, rock waterfall, tennis court purchased just a few months after his 18th birthday. He starred in an NBA 2K22 commercial alongside Jason Tatum. He launched his own NFT collection. He had more than 5 million combined followers across his social media platforms. He was ranked inside the top 20 nationally in his recruiting class by 247 Sports. The machine was running at full speed. The bag was absolutely real. And then, in the span of roughly 24 months, every single piece of it collapsed. Puma confirmed the deal was over. Lace Clips cut ties. The legal bills started stacking. The property costs kept bleeding his accounts. Mikey Williams went from the most financially positioned teenage athlete in America to eating ramen with a negative bank balance. But how did we get here? To understand that, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. The summer before 7th grade. That is where this story actually begins. Not in high school, not in college, middle school. That is the starting point for one of the most dramatic financial collapses in the history of young American athletics. Mikey Williams had a basketball in his hands from the time he could walk. His mother, Cherise, was a standout softball player at Hampton University, still holding the MEAC's all-time single-season record in doubles and RBIs. His father, Milan, had been an all-San Diego high school basketball player whose path to a Division I scholarship was derailed by grades. Milan once said God did not want him to be a pro player. He wanted him to train future pros. He was right. Williams grew up doing drills with his dad on the outdoor courts behind the apartment complex, developing instincts and explosiveness that were immediately obvious to anyone who watched him play. By the time he was competing with the Malcolm Thomas All-Stars travel team, coaches and scouts were already paying attention. The moment that announced him to the basketball world happened at the USBA National Championships. Williams and his team entered with one specific goal: face Bronny James and the North Coast Blue Chips on a big stage and beat them. They got what they asked for. When the game happened, Williams dominated. He scored more than 30 points, outplayed Bronny, and put on a display that had the gym buzzing from start to finish. USBA founder Mark Thompson said Williams was simply the premier player on the floor that night, and that people left asking who this Mikey Williams kid was. That question, once asked, never went away again. What followed was a social media and brand building operation that was aggressive, intentional, and remarkably effective for a kid who had not yet started 8th grade. Publications declared him the top-ranked 7th grader in the country. Mixtape creators started following his games. His family built his brand in real time, posting curated highlight videos, lifestyle content, and carefully framed images of a teenager who already looked and moved like a star. Gen Z media company Overtime moved in and began filming a YouTube reality series around his life. When he passed 1 million Instagram followers after posting a 360 behind the back dunk, his family presented him a cake with a 1 followed by 6 zeros. Williams sat on a throne chair on a hillside overlooking his city and said something that would follow him forever. He said he was not up next. He was up right now. By the time he started high school at San Isidro, a humble public school 1 freeway exit from the Mexican border, he had already attracted the attention of LeBron James, Drake, and Dwayne Wade, who watched him drop 50 points in the early game. He scored 41 in his debut, 77 in his 9th game with 9 3-pointers, shattering the San Diego County single-game scoring record. Max Preps named him National Freshman of the Year. Fans waited over an hour after games just to get a photo. Security protocols had to be created just to get him to the parking lot safely after games. He was not just a high school basketball player, he was a phenomenon. And then came the money. This is where it gets interesting, because the money arrived in a way that was genuinely historic and genuinely dangerous at the same time. In July 2021, Williams signed with Excel Sports Management. That fall, the Puma deal dropped. Multi-year, multi-million, a global sneaker company betting on a 17-year-old with 5 million followers, and a story that cut through every demographic. A Lace Clips partnership followed, paying him up to $200,000 annually to promote wearable sports technology to young audiences. An NBA 2K22 commercial opposite Jason Tatum, an NFT collection, appearance fees, social media income. He was generating real money before he stepped onto a college court. On the I Am Athlete podcast, recorded inside the Puma flagship store in New York with former NFL stars Brandon Marshall, Adam Packman-Jones, and LaShawn Shady McCoy, Williams made his famous declaration, $1 billion by 25. But he also said something else that day, something that only sounds significant in hindsight.
I'm trying to be worth $1 billion by the time 25. Ooh, 25. So 7 years. In 7 years, because it's like, I think.
He said he knew it could all end tomorrow. He said he was aware of how quickly it could disappear if he was not smart. He knew, he said it on camera, and then less than 2 years later, it happened exactly the way he described. But here's what most people are missing about how this fell apart, because the collapse did not start with the arrest. The cracks were already forming before that night in March 2023. According to Rivals analyst Rob Cassidy, who covers recruiting for a living, 2 completely different worlds existed simultaneously around Mikey Williams. In one world, the internet world, he was the undisputed top prospect in the country. In the other world, the one where actual NBA evaluation happens, the picture was significantly less clear. Williams was still around 6'2". His scoring efficiency was inconsistent. His defensive commitment was a recurring concern. Cassidy said plainly that anyone actually doing the evaluation work understood the NBA trajectory being publicly projected was not matching what they were seeing on film. His popularity was so far ahead of his actual development that the gap between perception and reality had become enormous. The path chosen to address those concerns only widened the gap. His father, Milan, founded Vertical Academy, a club program built around showcasing Williams across a 40-plus game national schedule of showcase tournaments and elite prep schools. What it did not provide was the development structure and coaching infrastructure that programs like Montverde or IMG Academy are built around. One NBA scout told Yahoo Sports his franchise had barely done meaningful intel on Williams even before the arrest, because the profile simply did not project convincingly enough at the next level to justify the evaluation investment. The brand was enormous. The basketball had not caught up. The senior year that was supposed to close the chapter cleanly fell apart on multiple fronts. It started at the invite-only Section 17 camp in Glendale, Arizona, the event that annually draws over 500 college coaches, and where San Isidro had been placed in the marquee division, specifically because organizers were told Williams would be playing. The fans showed up, the coaches showed up, the matchup with Andre Stojakovic, the 5-star son of former NBA All-Star Peja Stojakovic, was ready, and then the game started and Williams was not in the building. Sources told Yahoo Sports that San Isidro's own head coach found out Williams was not coming, only doing pre-game warm-ups. The college coaches who had made travel arrangements around watching him in person left having evaluated nothing. When the actual high school season began, the concerns only grew. Carlsbad coach Clark Allard studied Williams on film before their January 2023 matchup and said his staff was literally laughing in film sessions at what they were seeing from him defensively. He said the night of the game, it felt like Williams was going through the motions, more invested in a persona than in competing. Williams scored 25 points. Carlsbad won. San Isidro finished the season with 13 losses, some of which came against teams that had no business competing with a roster featuring 2 players ranked in the top 100 nationally. Questions about his mindset and effort contributed to him being left off the McDonald's All-American roster, falling out of 2024 NBA mock drafts entirely and dropping to number 71 in the Rivals class rankings by their final update. However, even with all of that, nothing prepared the basketball world for what happened on March 27. Shortly before midnight, a white Tesla carrying 6 people drove up the narrow road to Williams' property in unincorporated East San Diego County. 5 acres, infinity pool, rock waterfall, tennis court, a $1,200,000 home he had co-owned since August 2020. The occupants arrived because one of them was in a relationship with Williams' teammate J.J. Taylor, who also lived there. According to witness testimony at the pretrial hearings, Williams appeared shocked they were there and immediately began issuing threats. A teenage girl who was present testified that he told them to get to stepping or they would leave with bullet holes. Multiple witnesses said Williams disappeared inside the house after saying he was going to get his gun, then re-emerged as the tester began pulling away. Photographs submitted as prosecution evidence showed the vehicle's trunk and rear windshield damaged by gunfire. All 6 occupants survived unharmed. Williams was arrested on April 13, 2023. Deputies searched the property and found multiple firearms, including a handgun with a loaded magazine on the nightstand in his bedroom. He was charged with 9 felony counts, 6 counts of assault with a firearm, 1 count of firing into an occupied vehicle, and 2 counts of making criminal threats. The charges carried a combined maximum of 30 years in prison. Los Angeles criminal defense attorney Irash Hashemi, who followed the proceedings closely, said the evidence against Williams was very strong, that 9 counts was an uphill battle by any standard, and that unless something significant emerged that was not yet public, his defense had serious work ahead of them. Williams did not help himself when he posted a social media clip from a pretrial hearing with a caption referencing a rap lyric about bullet holes. The judge ordered him to stop making social media posts about his case and called his behavior stupid. In November 2023, Williams reached a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to 1 felony count of making criminal threats. The remaining 8 charges were dismissed. He was ordered to complete a gun safety course, anger management, cognitive behavioral therapy, and 80 hours of community service. In August 2024, the felony was reduced to a misdemeanor. He avoided prison, but what the plea deal could not undo was the financial damage already in motion. Puma confirmed the end of their deal to the San Diego Union Tribune in October 2023. The same month Williams was arraigned. Lace Clip CEO Jonathan Nussbaum did not soften his words. He said Williams had been in breach of contract before the arrest. He said Williams never did the required social media work, never actually wore the product he was paid to promote, and did not seem to care about the partnership. Both companies were gone. Every endorsement dollar was gone, and the bills were not. This is the part that most people never think about, and it is the most important layer of this entire story. The income stopped immediately, the expenses did not. The $1,200,000 property did not stop generating costs because the Puma deal ended. Property taxes, mortgage obligations, and maintenance fees on a 5-acre estate east of San Diego continued regardless of what was happening in a courtroom. Criminal defense attorneys in Southern California handling a 9-count felony case with national media attention surrounding every hearing charged significant rates. Every motion filed, every pretrial hearing attended, every expert consultant brought in, every month of active legal representation added to a bill that had to be paid from whatever savings Williams had accumulated. And while that money was leaving his accounts, no new money was coming in. He was simultaneously sitting in legal limbo at Memphis, enrolled in online classes, barred from practicing with his teammates, unable to participate in any team activities, watching his eligibility clock run while his bank balance moved steadily in the wrong direction. He described what happened to his finances in his own words in the period since. He talked about his bank account going into the negative. He talked about going home and eating ramen. The kid who had stood inside a Puma flagship store and declared he was going to be worth $1 billion by 25 was sitting at home eating ramen and staring at a negative number where a balance used to be. The challenge that nobody inside the NIL era talks about loudly enough is that this situation, an athlete going from millions to negative in under 2 years, is not as rare as the industry wants you to believe. What the Mikey Williams story exposes is a structural problem at the core of the NIL era. NIL income is not a salary. It does not come with union protections, mandated financial advisors, or guarantees of any kind. Every dollar an athlete earns through a brand deal is conditional on 3 things: public image, image, continued performance, and reputational alignment with that brand. When all three collapsed simultaneously the way they did for Williams between April and October 2020, the income disappears overnight. The Puma deal was worth millions precisely because Williams represented a specific brand value proposition. Young, generationally athletic, massive social following, safe bet on basketball's next wave. The arrest, the 9 felony counts, the social media post about bullet holes, and a year of media coverage surrounding every court appearance destroyed every element of that proposition simultaneously. No global footwear company marketing to teenagers can survive that association. Puma made the only business decision available to them. Lace Clips had been looking for an exit before the arrest even happened. Both deals died, and with them went the financial oxygen keeping everything else afloat. The broader picture is one that keeps repeating, and Williams is far from its only victim. Imoni Bates, widely considered the most talented prep player of his generation just a few years earlier, saw his own trajectory reshaped by the gap between the hype machine and the patient development required to actually reach the level everyone projected. He arrived at Michigan State as the consensus best player in America and left without ever becoming what everyone assumed was inevitable. The ripple effect of these collapses extend far beyond the athletes themselves. Families that built their financial lives around the son's projected earnings. Agents and advisors whose income disappears when the client's deals disappear. Brands that tie their identity to a prospect's future only to absorb the reputational cost of severing the relationship publicly. Everyone in the orbit of a young athlete at this level feels the impact when the bottom falls out. Industry insiders are confirming what they have known for years. The social media era makes these stories more visible and more brutal simultaneously. It creates more money and more exposure than any previous generation of athletes had to manage, but it does not create more wisdom, more support infrastructure, or more protection from the consequences of decisions made at 18 years old. What most analysts are missing when they talk about Mikey Williams is that his situation was not simply the result of one bad night in March 2023. It was the result of years of infrastructure decisions, brand overdevelopment choices, and financial architecture that was designed to generate income but not to protect it. For Williams, the knowledge was there. He said it out loud on camera. The structures were not strong enough to act on it when everything came for him at once. In January 2024, Williams announced he was leaving Memphis. His attorney, Troy Owens, explained that the university had gone quiet on whether he would even be cleared to play the following season. The internal review process dragged on without answers, and waiting was expensive in time, reputation, and eligibility. He committed to the University of Central Florida 4 days later. His caption was, 4 words, all I needed was a chance. UCF coach Johnny Dawkins said at Big 12 Media Day in October 2024 that both he and university officials carefully evaluated Williams before committing. Dawkins called the transition terrific once underway. Williams cleared his legal obligations, his felony was reduced, and he was eligible to compete. His 2024-25 season at UCF was limited by injury to 18 games. He averaged 5.1 points in 14 minutes per game. Those numbers reflected exactly what they were: a player who had not competed meaningfully in over 2 years, working through significant rust in the Big 12 environment. It was not a statement season, but he was in a uniform, in a real game, working towards something. In his situation, that was not nothing. The next move came in April 2025 when Williams committed to Sacramento State, where former NBA guard Mike Bibby had just taken over as head coach, and Shaquille O'Neal had been named voluntary general manager. Sacramento State gave him exactly what he needed at this stage: a coach who understood professional basketball from the inside, genuine national attention for a mid-major program, and the space to perform without the suffocating pressure of a Power 5 conference bearing down on him while he rebuilt. The 2025-26 season at Sacramento State was the first real evidence in years that the talent was still there. Williams started all 21 games he appeared in, averaging 17.1 points, 4.5 assists, and 3.0 rebounds per game while shooting 83% from the free throw line. In Big Sky Conference play, his average climbed to over 20 points per game, third best in the entire conference. He dropped 34 points at Idaho State in a performance that ranked among the best single game outputs in Sacramento State's Division I history. He He had a 3-game road stretch in early January where he averaged nearly 30 points per contest. Against UC Santa Barbara, he dropped 30 points and said afterward that the game had opened up for him, that he was making the right reads and executing. Williams also reflected early in the season on the previous 3 years, saying simply that he had not really played a lot of basketball during that time and that his rhythm was coming back. That honesty was his own kind of signal. He was injured late in the season and missed the final 8 games, but the foundation of those 21 appearances gave people something they had not had in a long time, a legitimate reason to believe in him again. So here's where we stand. Mikey Williams went from the first high school player in American history to sign a multi-year global sneaker deal to a negative bank account in less than 2 years. He went from 5 million followers in national television appearances to eating ramen and watching attorneys drain his savings. He went from a projected NBA draft pick to number 71 in his recruiting class without ever playing a college game. He survived 9 felony counts and came out the other side with a misdemeanor, a probation period, and a career still technically alive. He then put together a season at Sacramento State, averaging 17 points per night in Division I basketball, third in the Big Sky in conference scoring, with a career-high 34 points in a performance that ranks among the best in that program's history. The talent was never gone. It was buried under everything that happened to him, and it is now starting to surface again. Based on everything we have analyzed, the rollback is real, but it is not finished. It may not even be halfway done. NBA scouts who had questions about his ceiling before the rest have not changed their fundamental analysis. An undersized scoring guard needs to be elite defensively and exceptionally efficient offensively to carve out any kind of professional future, whether in the NBA, overseas, or in a developmental league. Williams has real work still ahead on both fronts, particularly on the defensive end, where the concerns about his commitment have followed him since high school. The sponsorships that built his brand are not rushing back yet. The financial recovery from a period of negative bank balances and 6-figure legal bills does not happen in one strong college season. What happened to Mikey Williams is a warning to every young athlete chasing the bag right now, and to every parent, advisor, and agent in their orbit. The NIL era can make you rich before you are old enough to vote. It can also put you at a negative balance before you are old enough to rent a car, if the foundation underneath the money is not built to hold. But here's what nobody can take from him. He is still playing. He is still competing. He is still the kid his father said God was preparing long before the cameras arrived. The fire that put him on that hillside at 13 years